Estelle Leonard speaking on the 24th day of July, 1946, Indianapolis. My young pupil asked me if I would compose a piece of music for her to be her very own. I answered, maybe I can if you will tell me what you want me to put in it. She said, I want scales, chords, and arpeggios, majors and minors, a good tune, and a period on the end of it. So this is what I had ready for her the next week.
Set this scene in your mind. It is autumn, 1885, in the center of Indiana, a town called Greencastle, a university named DePauw, a new structure christened the music school, a room referred to as the waiting room. 7 young women have gathered there. But why? The answer takes us back 1 year to 1884, when James Hamilton Howe from the New England Conservatory of Music in Boston was selected as dean of the new music school at DePauw. Dean Howe believed the music school was an integral part of the university, not a separate school. He saw the social interaction among the liberal arts students and detected the need for social opportunities for the music students. Yet he knew nothing about student social organizations. Nevertheless, he announced his plan to create such an organization, possibly a society for the music students. However, his plan was met with surprisingly little enthusiasm by the students. Some of these music students were from Greencastle and had witnessed college and fraternity activities all their lives. They wanted a fraternity equal to the 2 liberal arts women's fraternities on campus, but with music as the chosen art. James Campbell, a junior on campus who was a member of Beta Theta Pi, was in charge of the little music store in the music school. After considerable debate, James convinced Dean Howe that a women's social fraternity for the music students should be formed. Dean Howe asked James to assist the 7 women the dean had selected to create such a fraternity, and James played an important role in launching Alpha Chi Omega. Prior to 1885, no social music fraternity existed in the United States, and music students were not eligible for membership in the liberal arts fraternities. Alpha Chi Omega has the distinction of being the first Greek letter social fraternity for women enrolled in a music school. We have heard stories throughout our membership about our founders. We know they created a name, designed a badge, selected colors, held meetings, elected officers, and formed a bond that lasted a lifetime. What we have not heard before are the recollections of Alpha Chi Omega's founding from the first real strong women, our founders. Listen to Olive Burnett Clark in her own words.
In choosing our name and having exhausted every verbal combination, we resorted to the Greek alphabet and canceled every letter found in the 7 men's and the 2 women's fraternities on the campus. But each combination of those extra letters was discarded as futile. After continued disagreements, one of the girls said, as we are the first musical fraternity, why not use the first letter, Alpha? For it has only been used once, and then only in the combination Kappa, Alpha, Theta, and those girls are always called Thetas. This suggestion was convincing, so Alpha it was. To find another letter seemed even more difficult, when another one of the girls said, who knows, we may be the last one too. My last musical fraternity, and so I've not used the last letter, Omega, and it has not been used at all. It all seemed so easy. And when we told Mr. Camel Of course, by this time he was under our confidence that we had decided on Alpha and Omega. He wrote it in green letters, Alpha, Kai, Omega. As such, it is written in the minutes of our first secretary book. Again, Mr. Camel came to our rescue in choosing a badge and drew numerous designs in various forms and angles and the prevailing large size. So once again we turned to our Greek history, and here we found the lyre to be the first musical instrument, and appropriate too, though some of the girls objected because of the suggestive sound and the comments that might be made. This objection was soon overcome, and the lyre was chosen because of its graceful outlines, the lettering advantages over an open space, and of the symmetrical position for the three essential jewels which were immediately adopted as necessary requirements for our fraternity. Mr. Camel was an artist with pen and pencil, made drawings of the lyre and sent them to a firm in Cleveland and one in Indianapolis. The lettering on the scroll necessitated a change, so Kai was withdrawn and the Greek letter Chi and X was placed between Alpha and Omega. We were sure we had the most beautiful of all badges. All badges had a short, fine gold chain with the letter A representing Alpha and matching the jeweled badge. The first sample badge came from Cleveland, settings of pearls and with essential jewels and base in rubies. This was bought immediately by Bertha Denison Cunningham. Since Mrs. Cunningham's death, this badge is now in the Alpha Chi Omega archives. We know of no other original badges. Most important were fraternity colors, for you were not only known but seen by them. Due to the prevailing style, colors were of various widths and were worn in great bows around your wrists, narrow collars drawn through a buttonhole of your basque front, tied in a smart little bow, or with long streamers, anyway for show. The next day, as 5 of the 7 were crossing the campus from German lessons, we sat down under the shade of a maple tree discussing this very weighty question when a gentle breeze showered the leaves all about us and in our laps. As we casually picked them up, in a flash of concerted understanding, we knew we had found our colors, colors of our October founding, the scarlet and bronze green, found in the maple leaf on a perfect autumn day. By the time of our expansion of Beta Chapter, when Beta Chapter was founded, the bronze green was definitely changed to olive green due to difficulty to match the original color. Can you imagine the number of times we clasped our hands to find our grip? The number of times we knocked to find our knock and the knock in answer? The number of times we whistled to find our whistle and the whistle in answer? If you can imagine all this, you will know the fun, the hilarious laughter that is locked up in those decisions. These are a few of the original selections made by your founders that have not been changed.
Bertha Denniston Cunningham, known as Denny to her friends and sisters, gave us her own take on the early lessons she learned about customs and sorority life.
When I first went to DePaul, I noticed the two shades are blue and also the black and the gold. I didn't know, I couldn't imagine what they stood for. I thought it was a fad, and I remember that college opened on a Monday. I thought I could hardly wait till after chapel I was going down to town and buy me some light blue and dark blue ribbons to wear. But I did not go. On a Sunday afternoon, I had two lady callers. One of them was a Kappa, and before she left, I understood what the colors meant for. Then came the founding of Alpha Chi Omega. Our colors, the first time that we wore them, that is, the 7 founders, after they were purchased by Miss Leonard, I believe I have it, we divided the colors among us, tied them in bows, and then went over to the music hall to show Professor Howe. He was so pleased that he wore the colors on the lapel of his coat for some time to honor us. That was the first time the scarlet and the brown green were ever worn. We often went horseback riding too, and we would borrow our riding habits from some of the Greencastle girls. We always had a good time. At least we thought so then. There were no chaperones. We were mostly trusted on our honor. The young men I found were all very honorable and thoughtful of the girls, and seemed to respect them too. And now it is always quite a pleasure to me, whenever I see any of them from that I used to know at the park, to greet them with a smile and a handshake, and how do you do, and with a clear countenance.
From the earliest days, our founders realized that change was inevitable in the interest of practicality and relevance. They replaced bronze green with olive green as one of our colors because it was difficult to find bronze green ribbon. By 1910, the motto our founders had so thoughtfully created, "Ye daughters of music, come up higher," needed to be changed since the requirement that prospective members must be music students had been removed. Thus, Together Let Us Seek the Heights was adopted and has survived the test of time. One of the things that has not changed is the election of a president, whether of a chapter or a national fraternity. Let's hear what Estelle Leonard had to say about the privilege of being Alpha Chi Omega's first president.
25 years ago, when Alpha Chi Omega was celebrating our 25th anniversary, Dean Howe wrote me a letter in which he states that he was the first to think of fraternity for us. He also states that he had his plans in fair shape before he discussed the matter with anyone. Having finally decided that we should have a Greek letter fraternity of our very own, 7 girls were invited to be the founders. These 7 met in a small room near the front entrance of Music Hall, known as the Music School Library. The center table held papers and magazines for the entertainment of students waiting for music lessons. We met at 7 o'clock one evening and elected officers. Greatly to my consternation and over my protest, I was elected the first president and Mrs. Cunningham the first secretary. I had never been president of anything, and I felt totally inadequate for the responsibility. But the election stood. As to my job as the first president, I do not recall much about it. As we had 4 presidents the first year, I was not in office long enough to gain much experience as an executive nor as a disciplinarian. I do not recall using the big stick on any of the founders for frivolous conduct, but they were a lovely group, a lively group, lovely too. And perhaps I should have called them down, for I find reference in 2 letters from Amy Du Bois received in later years of the extremely heavy dignity which I assumed when in the president's chair, and how persistently she and others tried to make me laugh in meetings. We soon discarded our first idea of a purely musical fraternity, as there were not enough suitable prospects to sustain a chapter.
So we opened our membership to liberal arts students who must take music. Although we did not practice Robert's Rules of Order, perhaps didn't even know there was such a guide, and although we seemed to spend much time electing officers, we had really made progress. And considering our substantial structure today, we must have laid down a pretty good foundation.
As Estelle pointed out, the founders were lovely, lively young women. Each brought her unique sense of self to the fraternity. Here is how Nellie Gamble Child described her 6 founding sisters.
I shall never forget my first impression of Annie Allen Smith. Straight as an arrow, strong and forceful, one you just like to be with. Estelle Leonard, dignified, but always with a cheery word and a pleasant smile. Olive Burnett Clark, enthusiastic, full of ideas, and a way of carrying them through in a very friendly manner. Bertha Denison Cunningham, sweet and modest, a lovable disposition as you know her today. Bessie Grooms Keenan, unassuming, a strong character and a charming personality. Amy DuBois Reeve, called by us the little girl with the big voice and our songbird. Rather quiet she was, and full of fun. These were the girls who laid the foundation, and to many of you they are not unknown. Our hopes and aspirations for the future were founded on the principle of true sisterhood, mutual helpfulness, congenial fellowship, and on our motto, ye daughters of music, come up higher.
I quote Olive in her description of Nellie. When I first saw her, I thought she was the loveliest girl I had ever seen. Tall, slim, and graceful, with fair hair and blue eyes. Gentle in voice and manner, she was admired by all who knew her for her fine, good qualities and personal charm. These 7 women represent more than 12 decades of growth, inspiration, accomplishment, and purpose. Fashions have changed, technology has developed, words have been altered, and rules amended to achieve relevance in the world today and tomorrow. If Amy, Anna, Bertha, Bessie, Estelle, Nellie, and Olive were with us today, they would be proud of the progress Alpha Chi Omega has made since that evening in that waiting room so long ago. They would marvel that the very values on which they built Alpha Chi Omega's foundation still hold strong. These words of inspiration from Olive not only connect us back to 1885, but also carry us forward into eternity.
I must remind you that I am speaking in the fraternity language of 1885, for in no way was Alpha Chi Omega different at birth from other fraternities, except in the chosen art. These incidents are but the trend of the time, for fraternity does not change, it develops. Development is in the living of our ideals, in the heart that is shielded by the emblem of sisterhood, in the head where thoughts are unselfish and pure, by words that are kind, by acts that are sincere, by deeds that are worthy, by faith, hope, and love of Alpha Chi Omega. Do you wonder that we cherish this spot in our hearts and in our minds? Do you wonder that it is a spot made tender as we remember the days we spent together paving the way to build a fraternity all our own? For I saw a new music store and a bare little waiting room with shelves and chairs and the floor with no covering and a table all strewn with papers and books. and a door that opened to a center hallway. But the part of the picture so plain and so real that opened were the 7 young women, excited and happy, and their faces I could see as clearly as could be. There was Anna and Amy and Nell, Bertha, Bess, and Estelle, and the other one was me. 'Twas sweet to know our dreams came true, that we did attain the heights of our ambition, though oft times through the years our souls have been weary with troubles and sorrow and the ill what life brings to us as we each go our way. The sunshine of a beautiful and lasting friendship, sealed with pledges of trust and love, creeps in our hearts and scatters all the shadows, bringing glorious day. For 'tis the spirit of youth that cancels the years and strengthens our unity, that keeps sacred our vows and the pledges we made to our beloved fraternity. We had a longing deep down in our hearts to wear a badge and be like the girls, some our very best friends who wore the kite and the key. We wanted to know all the Greek letters on every fraternity pin. We wanted to live the life of a college girl without a moment marred, and not be singled out with a knowing glance and a whispered, "Too bad she's a barb." We wanted to spike and pledge and initiate and have fraternity meetings too. We wanted the friendships that were bound by a sisterhood, loyal and true. But you had the vision that broadened each year, and the courage and the ability to, and the love of ideals, and the strength of will to carry our beginnings through. You had the faith in the things we must do in the strife of keeping in line. You had loyalty, unselfish and true, and sincerity, noble and fine. So we gave you us, and you gave us you, in the bonds of our fraternity, binding never to sever, forever and ever, through eternity. Thank you.